everybody, welcome back to Unloaded, brought to you by FullMagNews. I'm your host, Grace Boatright. Today we have a very timely firearm. We decided that in light of what's going on overseas in Ukraine, we thought it might actually be a very appropriate time to do an AK-47. We don't just mean that sort of jokingly, but in a very serious manner. A lot of Ukrainian citizens who last week were chefs and bankers and the like are now finding themselves as soldiers. And so we thought, our very, very minor contribution to the Ukrainian effort could be to show them how to properly clean and maintain their AK-47s, which is pretty likely what they're going to be using. A lot of Ukrainians are now embracing the AK-74, but it's a very, very similar design, very similar setup, and so they're really going to come apart and clean up the same way. So I have here, it's not a legit Russian AK. It's an American-made one from Palmetto Armory, but nonetheless, like I said, they're all going to kind of come apart the same way. And this is a gun that really needs no introduction. I think my grandmother could probably pick an AK-47 out of a lineup. AK meaning Avtomat Kalashnikov, 47 referring to the year that it was first manufactured and offered to Soviet troops, 1947. Since then, it has really become a favorite amongst gun folks. I know guys who have like 10 AK-47s. They just love them, they collect them, they want them with different finishes, different furniture, and there's really a large variety of AKs out there. But like I said, they all kind of follow the same design and are going to come apart and clean up the same way. And we're going to go ahead and start that process now. All right, before we proceed to clean any firearm, whether it's an AK, an AR, or anything else, we of course are going to remove the magazine and make sure that we have a clear chamber. The magazine on this AK is probably one of its more distinctive features, the curved magazine as opposed to the straight ones for the AR. But now we're going to check our chamber, which is clear. Okay, from here, the breakdown is really pretty easy. Happily, you're not going to need any tools. The only tools you're going to need are right here. So I'm going to start by collapsing the stock. You don't necessarily have to do that, but I find it to be a little easier. And then you have a little button back here, which is what's going to hold that dust cover on, or the bolt cutter, as they probably call it. So just go ahead and press in on that. Lift it off like so. You're going to then remove the recoil spring by just pulling back on it, pulling it out of there. From here you can go ahead and put the stock back. Just go ahead and pull on that charging handle right there, connect it to the bolt carrier, pull back on it, gently bring it out of there. And from here we're almost done. The only thing left to do is to remove this gas tube right here. There's a little lever right here that you're going to pull up on. And then you're just gonna have to kind of get a little rough with it, sort of yank on it real hard, maybe play with that lever a little bit to make it a little bit easier, but then it's just gonna pull off just like so. But last but not least, you could take off this muzzle brake here on the end. Funny thing, I didn't really know until I was practicing this last night, but in Russia they do not follow the righty-tighty, lefty-loosey mantra. They actually go the other way. And so you're not going to thread it on the same way you would our muzzle brakes. It's going to turn the opposite direction. Okay. And from here, we are all broken down and we can begin cleaning. Now, I know what you're thinking. Ukraine is kind of a war zone right now, so you're not going to have all these fancy tools and cleaning supplies that I have here, but I was thinking last night what you might use if you were sort of in a bind, and I started to think, basically everything you need to clean a firearm is already in or on your car. You can clean a firearm with WD-40 and parts cleaner. You can lube it up with motor oil, and if you're really in a bind, the dipstick for your oil could become an instant cleaning rod. So don't think that just because I'm using all this fancy stuff here that you're gonna have to go find that somehow. No, if you're kind of in a bind, stranded in the middle of some sort of war zone, go find an abandoned car, pull out the dipstick, drain the oil, look for any kind of parts cleaner or anything, maybe in the trunk, and you should be able to clean your AK with all that stuff. So, but today I do have some of the, the normal cleaning supplies. But what we're going to do first is we're just sort of going to take the brush, and really even before you get into that solvent, just go ahead and start maybe scrubbing down the rails. Just get a cloth, an old t-shirt, whatever you have laying around, dip it into some sort of cleaning solution. I have your classic Hoppies here, but like I said, parts cleaner, WD-40, rubbing alcohol actually could be a great cleaner, as long as you do lube it up afterwards. Now I'm going to take a cleaning rod, and I'm just going to take a brush fitted for a 7.62, and then if you can, go from chamber end to muzzle end. Go ahead and get your cloth holder onto the rod now. Again, like I said earlier, like a dipstick from an engine that you use to check your oil could become a perfect instant cleaning rod if you needed one in a hurry. So, just gonna get that little cloth on there. We're gonna dip that into some solvent. Now that we've got the barrel all clean, we're going to go ahead and kind of go back to the chamber area here. Take a little brush, maybe get inside some of those nooks and crannies. I actually noticed that, even compared to my AR-15, there are not as many nooks and crannies in here. And so it's really not going to take you that long to clean down the inside here. Probably one other benefit of the AK. Once you do crack into it, it doesn't take that long to clean. And you could, in theory, sort of take off this forward stock here, the handle. You could take apart the bolt, but that is not required for routine cleaning and maintenance. Maybe every 4,000 or 5,000 rounds, it would behoove you to take the bolt apart and clean all of its little parts, but really that's not necessary, especially if you're needing to do this in a hurry. So, okay, all right, now that we have everything pretty clean, let's go ahead and focus on lubing it up. So I've got some just regular lube here, but like I said, motor oil makes for great lube, so don't feel like you have to get the fancy stuff. I am going to take a Q-tip here. Could just use your finger, but go ahead and get that nice and wet, and then we're going to do a really thorough job of lubing up the rails where the bolt is going to go back onto. In fact, let's just ditch the Q-tip for now and pour it right in there. There we go. Same thing back here on these little rails where the recoil spring slides in. You want all that good and lubed up because there's going to be a lot of metal on metal contact. I also recommend doing a good job lubing up where all your gas tube is going to click back onto. One thing that the AK is sort of famous for is you kind of have to get rough with it. You kind of have to slam everything down and get kind of like macho on it. But if you do lube it up a little bit, that won't be the case as much. Let's go ahead and get in those little crevices there. Sort of lube up here where it's going to connect onto. And I had forgotten to clean sort of the tip of the muzzle where that muzzle brake is going to go. That's worth wiping down. As well as inside that little gas key there where the gas tube connects into. That could get a little dirty. So So let's make sure we get that as well. Okay, cool. All right. But like I said, you really want to make sure that those rails right there where the bolt's going to slide back into are lubed up. And actually, let's just go ahead and lube up the actual rails on the bolt carrier itself real quick. So the bolt is going to come out kind of like this. Don't worry, you really couldn't screw up putting it back in there because it's only going to go in the gun really one way. And it's pretty obvious which way. You see like a little groove right there, a little dip. And then you see sort of a corresponding curve here on the bolt. And that's how you want to stick it back in. So. You really won't be able to pull it out, and you'll see how it sort of goes in flush with the actual carrier itself. So, and with that, we're ready to start putting everything back together, which shouldn't take us too long at all. So, first thing we're going to do is put that muzzle brake back on. Again, you're going the opposite direction you normally would. They use left threaded barrels in Russia, it seems. There we go. And you're going to have to pull on this little catch right here to continue screwing it on, but you're going to feel it lock here in a minute. Yep, there we go. All right, so that's on good and tight. Now we're going to put the gas tube back on. I feel like it's much easier to catch it on the key right there and then proceed to sort of play with this lever. Now you're going to see on the lever, there's a part where it becomes flat, and that's what actually causes the gas tube to come off. And so you kind of want to straighten it back to that flat part again to get the gas tube back on. And you might have to, it's one of the times you're going to have to get kind of macho with it. But don't be afraid, it's an AK. It's designed to sort of be abused. Just like that. Nice. Okay. And now we're going to push that little latch back down. There's a little divot here where it's going to catch, and so just push it back down until it catches in that little divot. Nice. All right, now we're going to put the bolt back. This takes a little finesse, but it's not too hard. Like I said, pull the bolt back so it catches. You don't want it back like that. You want it forward. And so kind of hold on to it like so as you stick that back. And now you're going to see these little rails back here on the carrier, and you're going to kind of just line it up with the end, and then again you're just going to kind of get kind of macho with it and just sort of shove it back in there. There we go. Shazam. All right, now we're going to take that recoil spring, which I didn't clean off very well. Let's do that real quick. This shouldn't get too filthy, but filthy enough that we want to be sure you clean it. Like most recoil springs and rods, it is meant to be one unit, so don't try to take it apart. I'm not even sure it will come apart, but go ahead and wipe it down. All right, and now you're going to take the end of that spring. You're going to insert it like so, and then there's like these little rails back here where we've already lubed up the corresponding rails back here, and you're just going to sort of push it back, line it up, make sure it's nice and tight. All right, we're almost done. Now we're just going to put this cover back on. There is sort of an art to this as well. You want it to catch under this little lip here. It would be super easy to put it back on without it catching, but then it's just going to fly up, and that's not going to help you. So put it in that little loop, in that little groove, and then use your other hand to push back. Again, this is probably easier with the stock collapse. Go ahead and push back on that little button right there, and then you're going to kind of just, in true Russian fashion, you're just going to kind of hit it real hard. Get it lined up, and then done. All right, put that stock back. Everything's nice and tight. Kind of wipe it down. All right, and our AK is now cleaned, lubed up, and ready to go again. One other little trick that is worth going over is, locking back the charging handle on an AR is kind of easy and obvious because there's that little lever right there that's meant to hold it open. With an AK, you can pull it back and lock it, but it's not as obvious. You need to put it into the firing position. You need to turn it on end. This also acts as a function check. We're going to pull it back, and then if you find that resistance level, you actually have to pull on the trigger to catch it, and that is going to hold it open. And then in order to put it down, there really isn't a trick to putting it down. Most folks I've seen just sort of do a hit it real hard kind of thing. And boom, there we go. Possibly one of the most distinctive sounds in the world. We all know what that sounds like. And now, let's see, we got everything going. All right, everything seems to be in proper working order. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. We hope everyone found this video to be helpful. For some of you, it might be essential right now. As I said, our hearts, thoughts, and prayers really go out to the people of Ukraine right now. We know it's tough times, but hopefully we at least could help you, keep your firearms a little cleaner and in fully operational mode. So for more fun videos and articles, please go to FullMagNews.com. You can follow me on Twitter at GraceBoatright7. I also want to send a special thank you out to our friends at Vienna Arsenal in Vienna for loaning me this particular AK for the video today. You guys have been great. I enjoy working with you. We appreciate all you've done to contribute to the show. And we look forward to more fun firearm videos in the future. All right, everybody. Have a great week. We'll see you next time. Bye.